Hey everybody. So we're back here for the second part of the Div Tags talk, and what I want to do in the last one we kind of showed just how to make some blocks, how to play around with some color, and a little bit about the float tag. But I actually wanted to show you how to take a page that looks like this, turn it into a page that looks like this. Excuse the tacky colors. I did that so you could really see what's going on as we make the changes. But you notice this kind of has the standard, hey, we have a heading, we have some, a side panel, navigation bar, whatever you want to say, and we have kind of a center section that has some content in it. So, like a lot of this stuff, I laid it out, and it looks really plain if you just look at the HTML. So, you can take a look at what I did, and again, you're more than welcome to use your own comment, but or content, sorry, not comment. But I want to talk real quick about something that I did. I actually took the document that I sort of put together last time. You'll notice that I have, first section and second section like I had before, but I decided to wrap some things in additional blocks. And this is because I wanted to sort of make zones on my page. I made a zone that I called top banner. I made a zone that I called left menu, and I put a quick little unordered list inside of it. I made something called the main section. That was that what I'll call the big red section here on this page. Again, this is all just in HTML, so it doesn't look like anything yet. It's just saying, hey, I want to have a big group. Okay, so notice what that let me do is actually I can have divs inside of divs. Okay, what that sort of ends up, you could think about it as, hey, look, I have these little boxes. I'm going to put them inside a bigger box, and then I'm going to scoot that bigger box around. That's what it's going to let me do. So I'll be able to style these sections just as I did before, but I can sort of link them together and say, hey, this is one big object. And that's going to end up being a nice, important technique that we're going to use. So then I have my sections before, and you see I just sort of close it up. Now, from the last example, I have all the style that we did before. And you notice here how I made it all green. I did this with something called a comment. Now, a comment in any sort of programming is a way to sort of leave yourself little messages. Okay, that's kind of the number one way it's done. And for something like HTML, it's very nice to leave a little comment that, for instance, says like, oh, this section does this section does this, something descriptive to help you along. But the other, almost more important thing that it lets you do is it lets you sort of cancel out a bunch of text all in one block. So if I make it turn green, the browser doesn't try to make it show up. And the way you do this is that you select the text that you want to do. I'm going to sort of select all this, and I go up into Edit, and one of the chop choices down here says Comment and Uncomment. And right now I have done a block comment, which made it all go away, or be green, and then I can do block uncomment, and it pops up back and looks normal. So if I save that and I go to my not this page but this page, I'm gonna refresh this, and you notice, hey, look, all that style that I did last time, right? I made the yellow background and I made these guys next to each other. That all came back. Okay, so that was actually very nice. I could kind of show you a little before and after. Okay, now let's just remember that I put in the structure, right? So I have a top banner, a left menu, a main section, and these little subsections. So what I want to do is I'm going to kind of show you piece by piece how I styled each of these sections so I could get them to line up the way that I wanted to. So the first section that I want to take a look at is I want to take a look at the main section. Okay, so if I look at the main section, it's kind of well, actually, you know what? Let's do the top. The top banner is really the the easiest choice. So, so just to save a little time, I'm going to do a little cutting and pasting and show you some stuff that I've done before. So let me grab what I did for the top banner, and I'm just going to drop it into my little world of math here. Okay, so like magic, what did I do? Well, I set a background color as black, the text color as white. I set a fixed width. I wanted the top banner to be about 800 pixels wide. I kind of decided that was going to be that center column. I wanted it to be 800 pixels wide. You'll kind of see that for a while. And I gave it a height because I wanted it to be a little bit thicker than whatever the text was. Now I did this funny thing that says margin left 220 pixels. We'll understand a little bit what's going on there in a second. It's basically saying I want it to be 220 pixels from the left edge of the screen. Why did I choose 220 pixels? Again, that's going to come up in a little bit. It had to do with lining up all the boxes as I sort of finished. Okay, and then the margin bottom is I wanted there to be a little space on the bottom, and padding we've talked about, and aligning the text center is going to keep it nice and centered in the middle. So go back over here, refresh the page, and wow, look, we have this beautiful little black box, and it's in the center of the page. Okay, now the next thing that we sort of want to do is we actually want to set up these little links to be in their own box, and we want them to be on the left side of the page. The gist of this is going to be really the same as we've done before. So I'm going to go get the code, but what do we think we're going to do? Hey, we're definitely going to do something along the lines of, we have our left menu, right? What are we going to do with the left menu? Okay, well, I'm going to give it some sort of width and height. Okay, I'm going to give it some sort of margin, color, background, and I'm going to do one last thing. So if we go down here, let me just copy it over. I'll go down exactly what I did in this example. So in this case, in my left menu, I said, hey, I want the color to be white, I want the background color to be purple, and for my width and height, I kind of set default values. 200 pixels to me seemed like a nice size. Not sure why. And I said 500 pixels tall. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of say that the the height will be a screen height long. It doesn't really matter. I thought 500 pixels is nice because it usually doesn't take up the whole screen. And this float is really important. So I'm actually going to cut this out for a second, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like just by doing left menu with these color choices. So if we refresh it, you'll notice that we get a purple box, and it sort of pushes everything else down to the bottom. Well, why does it do that? It does that because we didn't tell anything to be allowed to be next to it. So kind of like I said before, div tags sort of work like paragraphs. Unless I tell them otherwise, the paragraphs are going to come one right after the other. So the next thing we want to do is we want to say, well, hey, if there's room, let's get this to fit. Okay. So how are we going to get it to fit? We're going to use the float left. What that means is that it's going to sit on the left-hand side of the page, and if there's room, the next thing down is going to try to fit alongside with it. So you can see kind of the quick result of that, okay, is that there was actually enough room for both of these, or all three of these, to fit on the page. Now remember, from our first example, we had a float command inside the blue section and the pink section, and that sort of let everyone span across. Now this is actually kind of a neat way to do it. You'll notice that if I change size, I get this kind of it jumps around feature. Okay, right now this layout, it's going to suffer from that problem. If we shrink the space that it works on, it's going to sort of mutate and change. So basically, when you're designing this, kind of design it for, well, what's the browser window size going to be most likely? On my laptop, it's a little wider than it is on the school computers. So just kind of adjust your sizes, accordingly. So you get into a little bit of arithmetic. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the floats off of each of the sections. Okay, because I actually want them to be just right on top of each other. I decided that that was kind of a thing that I wanted to do because I want to make that big center column. So if I do that, ooh, that doesn't look good at all. So they sort of like overlapped on top of each other. And that has to do a little bit as I sort of squished them on there. So that doesn't look nice at all. So let's talk about how we fix that situation. Is that we have to give them a little cushion from each other for everything to work. So that's where, if you remember, we put in an extra div tag that said main section. Okay, so we're going to sort of wrap both of our little boxes in sort of a bigger box. Then we can really position that bigger box in a way that's gonna let us kind of fit everything where we want to do. So we're gonna sort of trick it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy in the code that I did right here. Okay, and so I got my my sections all freshened up. This is just nothing really different than on the second section and the first section, right? Because those are the same. But so we're going to really focus on the main section. So now what I'm doing here is I'm saying I want some things to be able to float. Okay, so I'm going to make my big box float, passing stuff on the left-hand side. So what we're going to see is these things kind of get pushed off to the side. Now, in the main section, did I make any particular changes? The only thing that I really did that was sort of that's sort of different that I did is I made my big box big. Right, my main section is actually very large. 800 pixels, about 4 times as big as the other one here. And I set the background to be red, and I gave it a little bit of margin, which is going to separate it from the edges. And I gave it a little bit of padding, which is going to buffer it a little bit. So let's take a look at how that looks. Okay, cool. All of a sudden, I got the look that I really wanted. Okay, hopefully that's pretty clear. Let me just go over a few things. We're using float to get things to kind of latch on to each other, next to each other. Obviously, you can use float left. You can also use float right. Okay, so float left is going to push stuff towards the left of the screen. Float right is going to push stuff towards the right of the screen. Now, I'm sure a few of you are thinking right now, ooh, I can do some really cool thing where I get some stuff left, some stuff right, and then something in the middle. Okay, that's actually pretty tricky to pull off, right? And a lot of that has to do with, okay, actually everything's going to float left, and we're going to have our sort of secret middle column be longer or have some more things. Well, again, we'll talk about that if you want to play around with that. That's something you're more than welcome to do, but you can run into some snafus. Now, just quickly, let's go back up to my why is my margin left in the top banner 220 pixels? Well, I really wanted to line up this top banner, okay, with the edge of this box, right? So what did I have to do? Well, I know that this purple box is 200 pixels wide, okay? And I know that the red box has a 20 pixel margin. Oh, sweet. So that means it's 220 pixels from kind of the edge of here over to here. We're always going to have to take into account our margin and our padding a little bit when we're trying to get the